I used to think 7'5" was just a number. My name's Ellen, a retired elementary school teacher from a quiet suburb in Ohio. And I'd spent my golden years tending my little garden and cheering for the Cleveland Guardians on TV. Life wasn't perfect, but it was mine, and I loved it. Then came the fall. It wasn't even a bad one, just a stumble on my front porch steps while carrying groceries, but my daughter panicked. She said, "Mom, what if next time you break a hip? We need to think about your safety." I brushed it off at first. I'd been living alone since my husband passed 5 years ago, and I'd managed just fine. "Thank you very much." But she kept pushing, saying a nursing home would give me peace of mind, good care, maybe even some new friends. I started picturing it. A cozy place where I wouldn't have to mow the lawn anymore, where someone else would cook my meals, and I could just relax. It sounded like a vacation I'd earned after decades of grading papers and raising kids. So I said yes. My daughter found a spot at a nice facility 20 minutes away, with big windows and a garden courtyard I thought I'd love. I packed up my favorite sweaters, a few photo albums, and my gardening gloves, figuring I'd still keep busy. The first day felt okay. The staff smiled, the room was clean, and I told myself this was the smart choice, the safe choice. I even waved goodbye to my little house with a smile, thinking I'd visit it now and then. But that smile didn't last. By the end of week 1, I felt a pit in my stomach I couldn't explain, like I'd just made the biggest mistake of my life. This wasn't a vacation. It was a trap I'd walked into with my eyes wide open. You ever think a nursing home's the easy answer? I did too, and boy was I wrong, because what I found inside those walls broke me in ways I never saw coming. 5 hard truths hit me like a ton of bricks, and I wish someone had warned me before I signed that lease. Before we dig deeper, I'd love to hear from you. Where are you tuning in from? If these insights about living stronger at 75 hit home, share your thoughts below and consider subscribing. Things are heating up and you won't want to miss what's next. I'm not here to scare you for no reason. I'm here because I've lived it, and if you're over 60 or you've got a loved one who is, this might just save you from the regret I'm still clawing my way out of. Stick with me, because this story's got a twist. Back in my old life, I had my routines. Every morning, I'd brew a pot of coffee, step outside to water my roses, and wave to my neighbor Jim as he walked his dog. It wasn't fancy, but it kept me going. I wasn't some frail old lady either. Sure, I moved a little slower, but I could still carry a bag of potting soil or climb the stairs without huffing. That fall was a fluke, not a sign I was falling apart. My daughter saw it differently. She'd call me up, worried sick, saying things like, "Mom, I just want you to be safe. You're not as young as you used to be." Guilt's a heck of a motivator, and I didn't want her stressing over me. The nursing home pitch sounded good on paper. They had activities like bingo, a dining hall with 3 meals a day, and nurses on call if I needed them. My daughter said it'd be like college dorm life, but with better food and no finals. I bought into it. I mean, who wouldn't want a break from scrubbing floors or shoveling snow? I figured I'd trade a little independence for a lot of comfort. How bad could it be? Packing up was bittersweet. I left most of my furniture behind, figuring I'd only need the essentials in my new apartment. My grandson hauled my boxes, joking I'd be the coolest grandma in the place. Move-in day had promise. The lobby smelled like fresh flowers, and a sweet aide named Maria showed me to my room, a small space with a twin bed and a view of that courtyard. I thought, okay, Ellen, you can make this work. But then the door closed. I sat on that stiff mattress, looked around at the beige walls, and felt something shift, like the air got heavier. My gardening gloves sat unused on the dresser, mocking me. That first night, I couldn't sleep. The hum of the hallway lights buzzed through the walls, and I kept reaching for my old bedside lamp that wasn't there. I missed my creaky house, my messy kitchen, my life. By day 3, I knew I'd messed up. I tried calling my daughter to say I wanted out, but she laughed it off. "Give it time. Mom, you'll settle in." Settle in? I didn't want to settle. I wanted to live. It wasn't the staff's fault. They were kind enough, bustling around with their clipboards, but they couldn't fix what was breaking inside me. This place wasn't home. It was a cage with better lighting. I started noticing little things. My coffee wasn't my coffee anymore. It was some watery stuff from a machine, served at 7 a.m. whether I liked it or not. My roses? Out of sight, out of mind. Then the bigger stuff hit. I couldn't just step outside when I wanted. I had to wait for an aide to escort me, like I was a kid again. Independence? Gone faster than a bases-loaded homer in the ninth. I'd always prided myself on being sharp. Teaching third graders keeps your mind quick, and I loved a good crossword puzzle over breakfast. But here, something fell off, and it wasn't just the lousy coffee. Looking back, I should have fought harder. I let my daughter's worry and my own doubts push me into a choice that flipped my world upside down. Safety? Sure, but at what cost? I'm not saying nursing homes are evil. Some folks need them, and that's fine. But for me, it was a slow unraveling I never expected. I lost more than my address. I lost pieces of myself. Here's the kicker. It didn't have to be this way. Over the next stretch, I'll walk you through the 5 hard truths that blindsided me. Truths I wish I'd known at 75. They're tough, but they're real. And there's hope too. I didn't just sit there and take it. I found a way to fight back, to reclaim what I could. By the end, I'll show you how I turned it around, and maybe you can too. So let's dive in. These truths aren't pretty, but they're honest. And if you're thinking about a nursing home for yourself or someone you love, you need to hear them. Trust me, I learned the hard way. So here I was, Ellen, 75 years old, sitting in my new home that felt more like a waiting room. I'd traded my creaky porch and blooming roses for a twin bed and a schedule I didn't write. Let's start with the first hard truth. I lost the freedom to choose. Back home, I decided everything. Want pancakes with extra syrup for breakfast? I'd whip them up, humming an old tune my third graders used to love. Here, breakfast was at 7 a.m. A tray of lukewarm oatmeal or rubbery eggs, no negotiation. I tried asking for something different once. The aide shrugged. This is what's on the menu, Han, and walked off. My kitchen, where I'd flip flapjacks on Sundays, felt like a distant dream. It wasn't just food either. At home, I'd nap when I felt like it, maybe doze off watching a Guardians game in the ninth inning. In the nursing home, lights out was 9 p.m., ready or not, like I was back in summer camp. Even stepping outside was a chore. I'd asked to see the courtyard, picturing myself tending their flowers, but I needed an escort, and half the time they were too busy. My gardening gloves gathered dust while I stared at weeds through a window. You think you'll keep your freedom in a place like that? I did too, but it slipped away faster than I could blink. Truth 1. Your choices shrink until they're not yours anymore. Then came the second truth, and this one hit harder. My spirit started to fade. Teaching kids for 40 years kept me sharp, gave me purpose, like when I'd see a shy reader light up over a book. At home, I had my garden, my puzzles, my little wins. In the nursing home, that purpose vanished. No roses to prune, no kids to teach, just endless hours of bingo I didn't even like. I'd sit there, marker in hand, feeling like a robot on autopilot. I noticed my mind slipping too. The Journal of Gerontology says purpose keeps your brain humming, and without it, you're sunk. I'd forget names, lose track of days, things that never happened when I was pottering around my yard. One morning, I caught my reflection in the bathroom mirror. The woman staring back looked tired, hollow, not the Ellen who'd laugh at a bad pun over coffee. It wasn't just age, it was something deeper eating at me. I tried fighting it. I'd hum those old school songs to myself, but the walls seemed to swallow the sound. Truth 2. When your days lose meaning, your spirit follows, and I was fading fast. The third truth snuck up like a shadow. I became invisible. Back home, I was the neighborhood fixture, the lady with the roses who'd host 4th of July BBQs. Neighbors would stop by, kids would wave, life buzzed around me. In the nursing home, that stopped. My daughter visited the first week, bringing my grandson with his goofy grin, but then the gaps grew. We're busy, Mom, she'd say over the phone, her voice tinny and far away. Friends faded too. Jim, my dog walking neighbor, sent a card once, but the mailbox stayed empty after that. I'd sit by the common room phone, hoping it'd ring, but it rarely did. Holidays were the worst. I'd watch other residents wait by the door, eyes bright then dim, as promised visits fell through. I stopped checking the clock after Thanksgiving came and went with just a text from my daughter. I wasn't mad at them. Life moves on. Kids have soccer games. Jobs take over. I get it. But being out of sight turned me into a ghost, and it stung more than I'd ever admit. One night, I sat holding a photo from my last barbecue. Me in my red apron, laughing with Jim over burnt burgers, surrounded by people who knew me. Now, just me and the hum of a fluorescent light. Truth 3. The world forgets you when you're locked away. It's not their fault, it's just how it works. But man, does it carve a hole in your chest. I went from the heart of the party to a name on a roster. I started wondering what I'd done wrong. Was it the fall? Should I have argued harder? Told my daughter I'd rather risk a broken hip than a broken life? The staff tried to cheer us up. They'd roll out a TV for movie night, pop popcorn, call it a treat. But I'd sit there, smelling that fake butter, missing my porch swing and a cold lemonade. I saw it in others too. There was Bill, a retired mechanic, who'd talk about fixing up old Chevys back in the day. Now he just shuffled to meals, eyes dull, like his spark plug had burned out. My daughter kept saying, "It's for your own good, Mom." I wanted to believe her, but good shouldn't feel like this, like I was shrinking into someone I didn't recognize. 3 truths down, and I was only getting started. I'd lie awake at night, replaying my old life. The squeak of my screen door, the smell of rain on my roses, the crack of a bat on TV. Here, it was all replaced by rules, trays, and silence. You think you're ready to give up control? I wasn't, and it hit me like a line drive to the gut. These walls didn't just hold me in, they started tearing me down. I'd always been a fighter. I'd raised 2 kids, taught classrooms full of chaos, kept my house running solo after my husband passed. But this place was testing me in ways I hadn't expected. The worst part? I couldn't just leave. I'd signed papers, my house was up for grabs, and my body wasn't what it used to be. 3 truths in, and I felt trapped, but there was more to come. I'm not telling you this to whine. I'm telling you because I wish I'd known. Wish someone had grabbed me by the shoulders and said, "Ellen, think twice." These truths are raw, and they're real. So where does that leave me? Sinking deeper, sure, but not out, not yet. The next 2 truths pushed me to the edge, and that's where this story turns, so hang on tight. 3 truths in, and I was already feeling like a shadow of myself. But the hits kept coming, and the 4th one landed square on my body. Truth 4. My health tanked faster than I ever imagined. Back home, I was no marathon runner, but I moved. I'd stroll around the block, waving at kids on bikes, or haul a watering can across my yard. It wasn't much, but it kept my legs strong and my heart pumping. In the nursing home, that stopped cold. No more walks unless an aide had time, which wasn't often, and my room was too small to pace. I went from stepping lively to sitting all day, and my body noticed. At first, I didn't think much of it. They brought meals to my table, carried my laundry, so I figured I was just resting up. But rest turned into rust, and I started feeling it in my bones. My knees got stiff. Getting out of a chair went from a quick hop to a slow groan, hands gripping the armrests like I was 90, not 75. I'd catch myself wobbling, something that never happened when I was chasing weeds in my garden. The Mayo Clinic backs this up. They say a sedentary lifestyle in older adults kills muscle mass fast, and I was living proof. What I thought was taking it easy was my strength slipping away, one idle day at a time. I saw it in others too. There was Clara, a spunky 78-year-old who'd strut in with a cane, bragging about her dance days. 6 months later, she was in a wheelchair, her spark fading with her steps. I tried to fight it once. I asked for a walk around the courtyard, but the aide said, "Let's wait for a better day," and rolled me a walker instead. A walker? I'd been fine without one a month ago. You think you'll stay fit in a place like that? I did too, but truth 4 hit me hard. When you stop moving, your body gives up, and mine was crumbling faster than a dry cornbread. Then came the 5th truth, the one that sealed the deal. I lost the power to decide my own future, and it felt like a life sentence. I'd walked into this place thinking I could walk out any time, but I was wrong. At home, I called the shots. If I wanted to stay, I stayed. If I wanted to fix up the guest room, I did. Here, my choices were gone, and leaving? That was a pipe dream. My daughter had other plans. She'd sold my house a month in, saying, "Mom, you don't need it anymore. It's just sitting there." My cozy little place, with its squeaky porch and rose beds, was someone else's now. I didn't fight it then. I was still hopeful, thinking I'd adjust, maybe even thrive. But as my legs weakened and my spirit sank, reality set in. Going back home wasn't an option when I couldn't even climb my own stairs anymore. I brought it up once, called my daughter, and said, "What if I moved back with some help?" She sighed, "Mom, it's too late. You're safer here." And I heard the finality in her voice. It wasn't just the house either. My savings were draining into this place. Every month another chunk gone, and the longer I stayed, the less I had to start over. I was locked in, financially and physically. I'd pictured a temporary stay, a little break, a reset, then back to my life. But Truth 5 slapped me awake. Once you're in, getting out's an uphill battle most don't win. This wasn't a vacation, it was a one-way ticket. I met a guy named Tom who felt it too. He'd been a truck driver, always on the move, and came here after a stroke, thinking he'd bounce back. 2 years later, he was still here, staring out the window at a road he'd never drive again. You ever think you can just change your mind? I did, but the nursing home had other ideas, and it tightened its grip every day. My old life felt like a movie I'd never star in again. One afternoon, I sat in the common room, watching Clara wheel by. She didn't even look up, just rolled to her spot by the TV, and I thought, that's me soon if I don't do something. 5 truths, and I was at the edge. I started replaying every step that got me here. That stumble on the porch, my daughter's worried calls, my own dumb optimism about safety. Should have known comfort's a lousy trade for freedom. The staff kept their routine. They'd check my chart, bring my pills, pat my shoulder like I was a good little patient. But I wasn't a patient, I was Ellen, and I was drowning in their system. I'd lost so much already. My morning coffee ritual, my barbecue summers, my legs that carried me through life, and now my say in where I'd end up. 5 truths, each one a brick in the wall around me. I'd lie in bed, staring at the ceiling. The hum of the lights was my only company, and I'd think about my roses, probably overgrown or ripped out by now. This place was burying me alive, and I felt it. You think you're tough enough to handle that? I thought I was too, built from years of wrangling kids and weathering storms, but this was different. It wasn't just hard, it was relentless. I hit bottom one night. Woke up from a dream about my old classroom, kids laughing, chalk on my hands, and then I saw that beige wall. I cried, first time in years, because I didn't know who I was anymore. But here's the thing, I'm a fighter. Always have been, from talking down a rowdy third grader to fixing a leaky roof solo. 5 truths broke me, but they didn't finish me, not yet. I started asking questions. Could I turn this around? Was there a way to claw back what I'd lost, even a piece of it? I didn't know, but I was done just sitting there. The staff didn't notice at first. I was still Ellen on their roster, another resident to shuffle through the day, but inside, something shifted. I wasn't ready to give up, not completely. Looking back, I should have seen it coming. The signs were there, in the rules, the trays, the locked doors, but I'd been too trusting. 5 truths taught me the cost, and I was paying it every day. So what now? I'd hit rock bottom. No house, weak legs, a spirit on fumes, but a tiny spark flickered. That's where this story pivots, and it's not over yet. I'm telling you this for a reason. If you're near 75, or love someone who is, these truths aren't just mine, they could be yours. But there's a way through, and I found it barely. Hang on for the last stretch. I went from broken to battling, and what I did next might just change how you see this whole mess. 5 truths down, 1 fight to go. 5 truths had me pinned. I was Ellen, 75, a shell of the woman who'd once ruled a classroom and tended roses, now stuck in a beige box with a body that wouldn't cooperate. I'd hit bottom, and it was dark down there. That night, I cried wasn't just a low point, it was the lowest. I woke up from that dream of chalk dust and kids' laughter, saw the sterile wall, and felt like I'd lost everything. My house, my strength, my spark, all gone. I could have given up. Plenty of folks here did, like Clara in her wheelchair or Tom staring at a road he'd never drive. But something in me, maybe that old teacher grit, wouldn't let me roll over. I started small. Lying in bed, I'd wiggle my toes, stretch my arms, anything to feel alive again. It wasn't much, but it was a start, a tiny rebellion against the slump. Then I got bold. I asked for a notebook and pen, told the aide I wanted to write, and she shrugged, sure, why not? I started scribbling letters, not emails, real handwritten notes to my old friends. First one went to Jim, my dog-walking neighbor. I wrote about missing his mutt's sloppy grin, asked how the Guardians were doing, kept it light. A week later, he wrote back, Ellen, you're still a hoot. Come visit. That lit a fire. I sent more to my book club ladies, my old principal, even my grandson, who sent me a goofy drawing of us at a ball game. Those letters became my lifeline, pulling me out of the fog. My body was next. The Mayo Clinic says even light movement keeps you going, so I'd shuffle around my room, 10 steps at a time, then 20. I'd grip the bed frame, do little squats, anything to wake my legs up. The staff noticed. Maria, the sweet aide, caught me stretching one day and grinned. You're a fighter, huh? I nodded, because yeah, I was, and I wasn't done yet. I had to face the big one, getting out. My house was gone, my savings thin, but I called my daughter and laid it out. I can't stay here. I'm fading, help me find a way. She hesitated. Mom, it's risky, you're not as strong, she said, but I pushed back. I'd rather fall trying than rot here. That got her, and we started planning. It wasn't easy. We found a home aid program, cheaper than the nursing home, and she agreed I could move into her guest room with help. I'd lost my old place, but I'd gained a shot at something better. Packing up felt surreal. I folded my sweaters, tucked my gardening gloves in, and left that twin bed behind. No tears this time. I was scared, sure, but alive again. The move was a blur. My grandson hauled boxes again, joking I'd escaped the big house, and I laughed, really laughed, for the first time in months. I was back in the game. Settling in took work. The aide helped with meals and meds, but I set my own schedule, brewed my own coffee, even shuffled outside to feel the grass. It wasn't my old yard, but it was close enough. My legs got stronger. Those little squats turned into short walks with a cane, and one day I made it to the mailbox, grinning like I'd won the World Series. Small wins, but they were mine. Friends came back too. Jim dropped by with his dog, the book club gals brought pie, and my daughter saw me light up in a way she hadn't in ages. I wasn't invisible anymore. I learned 3 big lessons from this mess. 1. Keep moving, even if it's just a shuffle, because your body needs it. Mayo Clinic's right. 2. Stay connected. Write a letter. Make a call. Don't let the world forget you. 3's the kicker. Don't give up your say. I let others decide for me once, and it nearly broke me. But you've got a voice. Use it. Fight for what keeps you whole. I'm not the Ellen from before. My roses are gone. My house too. But I've got a corner of my daughter's yard now. A pot of marigolds I tend myself. It's not perfect, but it's mine. Looking back, I regret that nursing home stint. Not because it was evil, some folks need it, but because I didn't need it, and it almost took me down. 5 truths showed me the cost of safety. But I clawed back. From a crying heap to a woman who shuffles to her mailbox. I found a way, not the old way, but my way. That's the twist I promised you. You might be wondering, could I do that? Yeah, you could, if you're near 75 or love someone who is. These truths hit hard, but they don't have to win. You've got fight in you too. I think about that fall on my porch a lot. It wasn't the stumble that got me. It was the choice after, the one I let slip. If I'd pushed back then, maybe I'd still have my roses. Still, I'm here now. Sipping coffee in my daughter's kitchen, watching my marigolds bloom, hearing my grandson cheer the Guardians through the wall. It's not the past, but it's a present I can live with. The nursing home taught me hard lessons. Freedom, spirit, connection, strength, choice. I lost them all for a bit, but I snatched some back. You can too. if you see the signs. I'm not saying it's simple. Moving out took guts, luck, and family who'd listen, and not everyone's got that, I know. But even small moves, a letter, a stretch, they add up. So here's my ask. Don't just hear me out. Think about your 75 or your mom's, your grandpa's. What keeps you ticking? Hold on to it, because it's worth more than safety ever will. I've got scars from this. My legs still wobble, my old life's a memory, but I've got a pulse again, a purpose. I'm Ellen, not a resident, and that's a win I'll take. 5 truths nearly buried me, but fighting back unearthed me. And if I can do it, so can you. Maybe not the same way, but your way. That's the real truth I found at 75. This isn't the end for me. I've got marigolds to water, letters to write, games to watch, and I'm not done yet. You're not either. So keep going, okay?